Almost 2 years ago, I made a countdown ranking my personal favorite stalkers from various games I played at the time. However, that video has become rather dated in terms of my scripts and the quality of my videos. Plus, I couldn't even get 10 stalkers to put on that list. I could only find 9 due to my options at the time, which is why I'm here to remedy that. But before we get into it properly, we need to answer the question: what is a stalker? Well, some prefer to call it the roaming monster, but it's basically a persistent force that will hunt you down for a certain amount of time. Sometimes they'll only hunt you for one level, but other times they'll be on your tail for the whole game. However, one thing remains consistent about them. No matter what, you won't be able to kill them, either until a certain point in the game, or maybe even not at all. You can only run, hide, and maybe stun the creature for a bit. But that won't stop it from hunting you down until you're dead. So how will we rank these various creatures? Well, it's simple. We have the usual 1 per franchise and only games I played criteria, but for this specific list, it'll go as follows. Firstly, how scary is the monster in question? Does it elicit fear from its design and animations, or is it scary in different ways? Secondly, how far does it go to kill you? Does it only stick around for a bit, or does it chase you for as long as it can? What's more, is escaping it as simple as running and hiding, or will it take more if you wish to live? Lastly, how do you finally kill it, if you do at all? If you had a monster on your back for a good chunk of the game, you would naturally want to finish it off in a satisfying way. Granted, not everyone on this list will get that luxury, and I will dock points accordingly. But if they can stay strong in other categories, a lacking final fight doesn't immediately ruin their chances. Also, I'm not allowed to include stalkers from asymmetric multiplayer games like Dead by Daylight. That's too easy. So with that said, let us begin. In the original list, I put Springtrap at number 4 because, in my mind, he seemed to fit the criteria of a stalker. But in retrospect, I feel like I was being too lenient with the definition. After all, you're not really avoiding him, you're just preventing him from reaching you. And he's not really hunting you, he knows exactly where you are. Yeah, you can't really fight back against him, but you aren't really given the option to fight back at all. So if he's not going to make the list, who is? Well, I began looking through the other games and found my best chances with the 3D games, Help Wanted and Security Breach. Spoilers, no one from Security Breach made it on here. None of the animatronics are remotely scary even when shattered, and the only one that tries to be scary is piss easy to deal with. That leaves Help Wanted, which doesn't give us that many more options since most of the game is just recreations of the older games. However, there is one candidate in the DLC, and in my opinion, he's one of the scariest animatronics in the franchise. Grim Foxy. While he does appear in the special Curse of Dreadbear Knights as one of the main 4 enemies, Grim Foxy gets his chance to shine as the stalker enemy of the Corn Maze level. In order to complete it, you need to find either a colored key and use it on the same colored door to escape, or find all 5 keys in the maze and get to the basement doors to find the Vanny Mask. While you do this, however, Grim Foxy will be walking through the maze trying to find you and eventually kill you. And the only way to evade him is to hide in the nearby cutouts as he passes by. I gotta say, this is my personal favorite version of Foxy. While he is loosely based on Nightmare Foxy, the fact that he's on fire, has a sickle in place of his hook, and has extra little details make him look really cool. As for how he works, he doesn't really wander the whole maze and more so periodically teleports in your general vicinity. While it is mildly disappointing, it can also lead to some tension as you explore the maze. Do you risk walking a bit further to find the next key, or is Foxy gonna spawn in a few seconds to kill you? It's decisions like this that could lead to your untimely demise if you aren't careful. With that said, he's at the bottom for a couple reasons. 1, his AI is aggressively simple as he'll charge when he sees you, and simply hiding in a cutout as he charges is enough to get him off your tail for a bit. Plus, that AI can get pretty dumb, with him sometimes not even seeing you until he gets uncomfortably close, and sometimes he won't see you at all and just pass right by. 2, he's only here for one very short level, and nowhere else. He does appear in Security Breach in one of the endings, and he's even easier there. It is what it is. Hopefully he'll have another role in Help Wanted 2, where he can shine his fire once again. Okay, I know I spent this summer talking all about Pikmin, But I'm gonna talk about Pikmin again. Hey, it's been about a month or two since the end of the marathon. I think I could talk about at least one thing. And given what I said in the Pikmin 2 video, I know a few of you saw this coming. For those of you who either don't remember or didn't watch that video, here's a recap. In Pikmin 2, there's a cave called the Submerged Castle that you can only take blue Pikmin into. And this cave is home to the Water Wraith. This bizarre, unexplained entity is completely invincible and wants nothing more than to flatten you and your Pikmin. If you want to survive, you'll have to be as fast as possible down here. Grab the treasures, kill the enemies, and immediately run to the exit before the monster shows up. And if he does, you're in for a bad time. If you make it past 4 floors, you're rewarded with some purple Pikmin, which are the only things that can kill this thing. And you finally confront it down at the bottom to kill it once and for all. Until it was brought back in Pikmin 4 in the exact same area, and made it spawn less frequently, and then proceeded to overuse it later on, thus ruining its uniqueness. Oh well, at least it's still the best part of Pikmin 2, but even then it's not perfect. Once again, it's only present for one level, and if you're fast enough, you can go the whole cave without even seeing it. Also, the eventual fight with it, while cathartic, is really short and simple. But regardless, the times and terror this watery steamroller brought will never be forgotten. You know what surprises me? I'm a huge fan of Little Nightmares, and yet I never talk about it. I think the only other time I genuinely discussed it in any capacity was the original Stalker list back in 2021, almost 2 years ago. Let's fix that by talking about the exact same topic I did last time. I know it sounds really lame to do this, but to be fair, my hands are still kinda tied in regard to both of these games. Every other monster is just living their lives until you happen to pass by, and the only other candidates are either not scary enough to be on here, or only appear in a couple chase sequences rather than actually hunt you down, regardless of how good their boss fight is. Maybe Little Nightmares 3 will fix this with a new Stalker enemy, but as of right now, the Janitor remains the truest and best Stalker in Little Nightmares. So what's his deal? Well, as you can see, he skipped leg day since birth and all that growth went to his arms. Plus his skin appears to have been pulled over his eyes, making him completely blind. But as a result, he has an excellent sense of hearing. After encountering him in the nursery, you have to be as quiet as possible when sneaking around. Walk on pieces of cloth to muffle your footsteps, use louder noises to confuse and evade him, and be quick with any cranks because those loud sounds can and will eclipse every other sound. Even when he's not in the room you are in, he'll still be chasing after you, using those gangly limbs to traverse the chip, and despite being blind, he can still give chase when necessary. He'll even reach into the vents for you at one point, and when he seemingly corners you behind a giant door, you gotta evade his arms and break the cage holding the door open to... Oof, there goes any growth he might have had before. But that's not the only time you see him, as in the Secrets of the Maw DLC, there's a section where you get to sneak around him in the dark while not stepping on any coals. Dude was scary enough when I could see, but now I gotta deal with him in the dark? Legit, the only reason he's down at number 8 is because he's not around for very long, and the others on this list do his job better. Despite that, the first monster of Little Nightmares has made his mark, and he intends to leave it there as long as possible. In the most recent entry of the Metroid franchise, Samus Aran is sent to the planet ZDR to eradicate any trace of the incredibly dangerous X-parasites. But before her was sent a special line of robots called the Extraplanetary Multiform Mobile Identifiers, aka the EMIs. As Samus discovers, all the robots that were supposed to be on the hunt for the X-parasites are now on the hunt for her. The first one you encounter may be heavily damaged, but even it proves too much for Samus to take down. You are taught that you can escape an enemy's grasp if you parry exactly the right time, but the window for parrying is so tight that you'll rarely hit it successfully. It's only with the temporary Omega Cannon that she's able to destroy the thing, and again, that one was heavily damaged. The rest, while containing specific sections on the map, are fully functional and more than capable of taking down Samus. They can sense your presence when you move near them, and if they see you, the exits to the EMI section will close off until they lose sight of you. This will persist until you get the Omega Cannon to finish them off, and even when you do, they'll make a beeline for your location immediately. Not scared yet? Well, maybe you'll get scared by the fact that after the first, the other EMIs have upgrades that make them even more dangerous. There's one that can crawl through small spaces, one that's really fast, one that can freeze you in place by looking at you, and one that can see through walls and fire electric shocks. There's also one more that holds the power bomb upgrade, but that one's disposed of almost instantly. While it's not one single entity hunting you down, the fact that there's several of these things roaming around is enough to keep you on edge. And some of them have you run through water without the gravity suit, meaning you're incredibly slow. Thankfully, there are some tools at your disposal that can help. With the Phantom Cloak upgrade, you'll be able to sneak by them without them seeing you at the cost of moving much slower. Plus, the EMIs are visible on your map, so you can keep them in the corner of your eye. With that said, however, those of you who've seen the original list know that I originally put them in number 3, and there are a couple reasons why I knocked them down to number 7. For one, the robots themselves don't look all that scary. Sure, in the heat of the moment you're panicking and running as fast as you can, but the designs in a vacuum don't really exude fear all that much. For 2, the Omega Cannon is a cool power-up, but using it on an enemy is as simple as shoot the face a bunch, shoot it again, dead. But even with those banes, the EMIs wish to live up to and surpass the terror of the SAX. And for many fans, myself included, they succeeded. Some of you may remember that the original list was only 9 Stalkers instead of 10. And I said in the video that the reason I didn't have a 10th entry is because I didn't have the means to play the game he was a part of. Well, now I do have the means, and I have no excuse to not include him. I can't believe I'm about to say this, but despite having an animatronic fiery fox, a watery eldritch horror on a steamroller, a blind lanky-armed monster, and a team of invincible robots, all of them lost to a completely ordinary guy. With a bit of a dark side.
Bad eggs need cracking, whack 'em hard and crack the shell, kick 'em down the stairs to hell. You know what you need to do, Jimmy? Show them who's boss. That's the way to do it.
So who is this man? Well, his name is Jimmy Hall, but ever since he was young, he's been tormented by a demented alter ego by the name of Hugo Punch. While Jimmy is normally a very nice man who's very patient and kind to others, Hugo loves to torment people for the fun of it, and even pushed Jimmy into killing a few people. In the present day, you play as Maya trying to find out the truth behind Hugo's murders, while Hugo stalks the halls trying to stop you. In terms of design, Hugo can range from not all that scary to devilishly scary. He may be a perfectly normal human, but in the right lighting, he's a regular diet Joker. However, the scare factor mostly comes from his presence rather than his looks, cause those moments of devilish scares are not very often. He is still a normal human after all. In terms of being a stalker, however, he pulls his weight well. As I said, he travels the halls of whatever floor you're currently on, and you're only guaranteed safety on the ground floor, the basement, and the stairs. Everywhere else, you have to keep your eyes and ears peeled as he'll periodically call out your name and hide behind corners to get you. If you go into one of the rooms and he follows you in, you have to hide in either the bathroom or the closet and hope he doesn't figure out where you are. And get this, if he sees you hide in the closet, he'll hide in the bathroom and wait for you to reach the door. This all comes to a head when during the last stretch of the game, you have to rescue your friends in one attempt before Hugo catches you. And during that section is where Hugo is at his most aggressive. So how do you survive him? Well, there are many ways. For example, you can call out to Hugo to lure him to your location, and you can use it to get him to go past you and open the way forward. Alternatively, you can use him hiding in the bathroom to your advantage and lock him in the room before he can get out if you have the key to said room. Sometimes even using simple stealth will get you through, but don't always rely on it. So all this makes Hugo a really good stalker enemy, but is there anything bad about him? Well, there is one thing that prevents him from reaching the top 5, and that is Hugo can't kill you. Well, actually, he can kill you, but only in the final stretch where you rescue your friends. For the rest of the game, he merely knocks you out, takes your ghost device and your keys, puts you in a random room, and that's it. Does it set you back? A little bit, but the device is always in the same room, and you'll get your keys back in no time. I do kinda get why they did this, but considering Hugo killed the previous hotel owner and goaded a random girl, his therapist, and even his own mother into offing themselves, I expected a bit more. Regardless, Hugo's managed to keep his secret safe, but with a sequel in development, it won't be long before he returns to continue his torture.
You're always going to do it, Jimmy. I'm in charge. Not you. I'm in charge.
So, in the original list, I had an entry from Resident Evil, and said entry was one that many would consider quite controversial, only made more controversial by the fact that I had him at number 2 on that list. Well, I think the RE fans in my audience will be pleased to know that he is in fact not the number 2 entry of this list. Instead, he's number 5. Nemesis is the ultimate bioweapon created by Umbrella. As Raccoon City was devastated by the virus, they sent him out to find and kill all the STARS officers involved in the Spencer Mansion incident, thereby covering up their underlying schemes. And yes, I am using Remake Nemesis because I really like this version of Nemesis, for reasons we will get into now. For starters, I love his design. The original was cool in an early PS1 sense, but I love the updated look. No, I don't care about the fact that he has a nose or think it's weird at all. I'm not manga common. In terms of his stalker role, he shines the most in the city. He regularly patrols the streets, and when he sees you, he'll run a full tilt to f*** you up. He'll knock you down flat with his fists, pull a scorpion with his tentacle, leap ahead of you like the Hulk, and even scream in your face for a stunt. Oh, and he can also use weapons like a flamethrower and a rocket launcher. Plus, he's the one stalker on this list that has multiple boss fights in the same game. The flamethrower fight is particularly fun since he uses it in a number of ways, and even when you blow up the fuel tank, he continues fighting by using the broken flamethrower as a club. Later on, he mutates into a bipedal monstrous version that drops the intelligence for even more murderous power. Granted, the two fights he has in this form are very similar to one another, but they have enough differences to feel unique, like the second fight adding in zombies and electricity. Meanwhile, the final fight, while largely simple, is fun too as you get to finish him off with a railgun! It's even named a finger! Really, the only thing I don't generally like about him is that he's rather scripted past the city section. Like I said, the fights are fun in my opinion, but everywhere past the city he only shows up for chase sequences and the aforementioned boss fights. A little more time with him roaming around would have been appreciated, but beggars can't be choosers. Though with that said, I guess I should address the elephant in the room. That being the fans who are upset that I chose Nemesis over Mr. X, and the fans who are really upset to the point where they're typing,
"How dare you choose Nemesis over Mr. X? Mr. X is the alpha Giga Chad stalker of the entire franchise, and Nemesis was butchered so horribly that the fact that you chose him to be on this list at all, let alone this high, is a crime against humanity! Go rot in the depths of hell, you absolute shit stain!"
Listen everyone, I like Mr. X. I really do. He's plenty good in his own way, but I prefer what Nemesis does more. Mr. X has no speed setting other than walk, and as a result, he's super easy to lose. It feels downright unnecessary at times. Hell, I'm more annoyed than scared by him. People might say stuff like,
"But Nemesis can be stunned by a single grenade!"
To which I say, so can Mr. X. What's his excuse, society? Furthermore, everything I've said and will say in this video is purely my opinion. I'm not stating that any of these stalkers are objectively better than others. I'm just stating my favorites in a particular order. Why do you gotta get so hostile over me having an opinion? Maybe if I was manga common who can't stop beating this dead horse because he's got nothing better to do, then I would sort of understand the frustration. But I've literally only talked about Nemesis twice before. The first of which was 2 years ago. The point I'm trying to make is, everyone's opinion on Remake Nemesis is completely valid. If you love him with all your heart, that's fine. And if you hate him with a burning passion, that's also fine. Just don't actively antagonize people over having a different take. Maybe debate with them if you feel like it, but never harass and shame them for it. That kind of behavior is never okay. And if I see anyone doing so in my comment section, that comment's going in the trash. No exceptions. Well, with that said, let's not dwell on the situation any longer. I like Remake Nemesis a whole lot, and no one can stop me. Allow me to paint a picture for you. You're a French soldier in the middle of the First World War. You've barely made it out of a war zone and have gone out to rescue your best friend and fellow soldier Lambert. Unfortunately, you're found by German soldiers and are incapacitated while carrying Lambert to safety. Yet by some miracle, you wake up in your bunker with a bad case of amnesia. You then discover that it's almost completely abandoned, save for one badly injured soldier who explains that the others ran and blew the exit in fear of a savage monster that ravaged most of the bunker. While it does have a real name, I will be referring to it simply as the Bunker Beast. Wait, hang on, we already covered Nemesis. What's he doing here? Okay, jokes aside, the Bunker Beast is quite the monster. It's vaguely humanoid, but far more animalistic and savage. With giant claws, it's able to tear through most objects and rip normal humans to shreds in a matter of seconds. And its speed is unmatched by most. As you navigate the bunker looking for the way to blow up the rubble blocking the exit, it will be tunneling all throughout the bunker listening for any loud noises. And if a noise gets its attention, it'll crawl out of one of the many holes in the walls and investigate. What's more, you need to constantly make sure the generator is full of fuel and always running, because once the lights go out, the Bunker Beast will automatically climb out of the tunnels and prowl the hallways, effectively spelling doom for poor you. The best way to survive this game is to be as quiet as possible, avoid running when you can, burn any bodies to prevent the rats from giving you away, be extremely careful of any and all traps, and if explosions are indeed necessary, make sure there's a place to hide nearby. You also have a revolver on hand, and while ammo is scarce in the bunker, every shot can buy you precious time against the beast, especially if you happen to get unlucky with the generator running out of fuel. All that said, there are a couple of small grievances I have, namely the difficulty and the last encounter with the Bunker Beast. While being quiet is an essential part of the game, it's a lot easier than you might think. Just don't run and be extremely careful of loud noises and you won't see it very often. Maybe it'll spawn in the corridors a couple times, but more often than not, it will only do so by either a necessary gunshot or explosion, or your own carelessness. As for that last encounter, it's really weird. You technically have two ways of dealing with the beast. You can either try to avoid it while using boxes to get over the last wall, or you can kill it by just blowing up one of the wooden bridges it's on. The former isn't likely to be anyone's first choice, especially since doing so allows the beast to escape the bunker, and the latter is extremely easy to do, especially if you have a special item that's tied to spoilers, so I won't elaborate on it. Maybe I'm expecting a little too much, but come on, you had a good thing going here. At least keep the ball rolling all the way. Well, despite that, the Bunker Beast is a welcome new addition to the Stalker roster, and firmly cemented its place as one of the greats. You know, we've had a lot of entries from more recent games on here. Sure, we've had a couple oldies and a remake classic, but the majority of this list has been a whole lot of newish characters. I guess that's because the newer games have gone the extra mile to do things not really possible in the older days of gaming. But we can't forget that the majority of the guys on here probably wouldn't be here if not for those stalkers of old. Sure, a couple remakes have done a few of them justice, but even when turning back to the original, one such stalker of old maintains the fear he once held. He's iconic, he's an internet meme, and he did all of that without a face. Come on out, Slendy! I know some of you are probably groaning right now, but to be frank, I don't care. Slender Man may be ancient, but he's still one of the best stalkers in the gaming landscape to me. After all, his most popular game, Slender the Arrival, was remastered this very month, and it's doing really well from what I can tell. For the record, I'm using this version of Slender, as well as the footage from the remasters, since it's basically the definitive version. Anyways, we all know the iconic Slender Man, incredibly tall, dark, and even handsome to some, wears a black suit, has tentacles coming out of his back, and has no real face to speak of. It may not seem scary all that much anymore, but seeing something like this for the first time, and even in real life, would be naturally unnerving. As for his stalker role, we all know his thing. Collect the 8 pages around the forest and he'll progressively get closer to you before snatching you up entirely. However, Slender the Arrival features a bit more for our faceless freak. During the usual collecting the 8 pages sequence, Slender is more random and aggressive than the 8 pages. You're always looking over your shoulder waiting for him to pop up. and yet even when he does, it still manages to make you jump. In the following level, Into the Abyss, he sicks one of his proxies on you, as well as appearing himself to try to halt your progress. And even early on, when there's no real danger, you can see Slender watching you from a distance. He knows where you are at all times, and knows full well that he could just teleport on top of you right at any moment. And yet, he chooses not to. Throughout this game, you're not winning against Slender. You're either barely escaping, or he's letting you go. This whole time, he's playing with you, letting you escape to give you false hope. And it's only when you seem to be making actual progress that he takes you a little more seriously, setting his forest on fire and attempting to ensnare you in his tentacles. By the way, said forest fire is the final encounter you have with him, and while in the original it was a weird where do I go chase sequence, the remaster makes it a lot more approachable and more intense thanks to the updated visuals. In fact, looking at Slender in this game, there isn't really anything I can complain about. The remaining two are really only higher due to preference. But even with my preferences, the Slender Man appears to be back in action, and I'm looking forward to see the tall man continue his reign of terror on the internet. Around the start of the 30s, two men by the name of Joey Drew and Henry Stein founded an animation studio and created their lead character, Bendy the Demon. They hit it off almost instantly, and the studio grew exponentially. However, after several years of success, and Henry leaving the company, all the fame and fortune just wasn't enough for Joey. He wanted his cartoon characters to be real. So he hired the Gent Corporation to make Bendy into a real living being. But when they tried, the Bendy they made was soulless, made from strange yet powerful ink. And over time, Bendy transformed from the little devil darling to a big ferocious monster simply named the Ink Demon. No, not that one. This one. Yep, I'm choosing Dark Revival's Ink Demon to be my number 2 entry. I still like Ink Machine's Ink Demon for what it is, but Dark Revival did a much better job with the character. As you can see, this new redesign is so much scarier. He's got gigantic horns, long pointy claws, an actual mouth, and even goat hooves. They really turned him from a shuffling zombie to an enormous monster. He can also speak now too. Regarding his role as a stalker, he starts off in Chapter 2 only appearing when specific items are obtained, but once you're out of there, he's after you for the literal rest of the game. He'll periodically pop up and try to kill you, and you'll need to find a place to hide before he finds you. It's great at making you nervous as it's easy to lose track of when he last attacked was, and when he does appear, you'll most likely be sent into a panic looking for a hiding spot. He also has a few scripted moments in areas he can't get to, but those are few and far between. Some may say it's easy to avoid him, you just gotta keep in mind where the closest hiding spot is. Some might even say that the bunker beast is scarier, but I disagree. Not only does the Ink Demon have an all-around scarier design in my opinion, but like I said, it's easy to not encounter the bunker beast that often. Whereas with the Ink Demon, it doesn't matter what you do, you will encounter him at some point. He's a ticking clock counting down the seconds before your death. And it's your job to keep track of them while you explore if you wish to survive. Even his final encounter is really good. The original final boss in Ink Machine was fairly mixed with very interesting ideas. So what does Dark Revival do? It lets you take control of the Ink Demon to smash through hundreds of lost ones and barricades until you get him to face the end reel and reset the cycle. It's a great sequence, if a little janky. Unfortunately, he remains just shy of being number 1 thanks to the actual number 1 being possibly the best stalker in all of gaming. But I still adore the Ink Demon. While he may have been reverted back to Bendy for now, it's only a matter of time before he comes back to regain control of his realm. And when he does, be on your guard, cause death is fast, death is near, and his reign will last beyond your fear.
Not I will make you strong. I will make you evil. It's
Ask yourself one question. What is the most important thing when faced with a stalker enemy? The stalker must be challenging. You obviously don't want to just walk all over the big monster chasing you, because that'll defeat the purpose of having the stalker in the game at all. Yet at the same time, you don't want to be faced with a stalker that's too smart or too tough to beat, because that sucks away a lot of the fear and fun from it. All the stalkers on this list had their own forms of difficulty, and while some are easier than others, they all at least feel like a challenge. The number one entry, however, takes everything to a whole other level. It presents you with a challenge unlike any other. A challenge that makes you feel like you're battling against a real intelligent monster. And it'll make all the hair on your body stand up from start to end. I'm of course referring to one of the scariest horror icons in fiction. And as of right now, the smartest stalker enemy in all of gaming. Ladies and gentlemen, the Xenomorph. Two remakes of previous lists and the previous number one entries still managed to remain at the top. So how did this thing get here, you ask? Well, there's a document detailing that one such crew member was brought on board with a parasite latched onto them. And if you've seen at least one of the movies, you know exactly what happened. Right now, you play as Ellen Ripley's daughter Amanda, answering the distress call from the station, and now have to find a way out of the station alive, while the Xenomorph stalks the halls. As I said, everyone knows the Xenomorph. It was one of the first sci-fi monsters and has stood the test of time for many years. It's its role as the stalker where it begins to stand out even more. You would think that it's not that hard to sneak around the big alien, but this thing is no mere scripted enemy. It has two brains in its programming, one to control the Xenomorph and another to study you. It can analyze your actions as the player and adapt accordingly. If you favor a certain hiding spot, it'll check that place more often. If you use the motion tracker a lot, it'll listen for the beeps it makes. And if you're careless when navigating the halls, it'll set traps for you in the vents above. What doesn't help is that you don't have many options at your disposal. Your revolver doesn't do shit, flashbangs and smoke bombs barely phase it, and noisemakers and flares only serve as short-form distractions. Even when you get a freaking flamethrower later in the game, it can only scare the beast away temporarily, and ammo for it is incredibly scarce. So if fighting this thing is a death sentence, how do you combat it? Well, by overcoming yourself. The Xenomorph is incredibly smart, but you can be smarter. Always switch up your hiding spots, be constantly on your guard, and know that you are never safe no matter where you are. Make minimal noise, use any hostile humans as good bait, and conserve that flamethrower ammo as if it were gold. If you can do all that, eventually Amanda will take after her mother and shoot the thing out the airlock, but after tangling with some rogue androids, she'll enter the core of the station to find an entire nest of Xenomorphs. For a brief minute, you'll have to navigate around multiple Xenomorphs and facehuggers to activate generators that will aid in burning the whole thing. But even that fails when the Xenomorphs escape, forcing you to get out and blow the whole station to smithereens. Granted, that last segment does have problems of small padding and a not-so-good ending, but it's still a great sequence all around. Compared to all the other stalkers on this list, the Xenomorph feels the most real. You're fighting for your life against this genius that will do everything in its power to kill you, but you can still find it in yourself to win. It's truly a masterclass in game design that does the Alien franchise justice. In fact, why has nobody ever thought to adapt this into a movie? You had the perfect template with Ripley's daughter, and the game is ripe with potential for rebooting the Alien films. I'd pay serious money to see this in cinema, movie makers. Whatever the case, I'm Tony Sonic, and I hope you enjoyed this remake of my previously belated Halloween special. Hopefully this won't be belated too, but I get the feeling it might be. Though I will say, this list was a bit more than what it seems. For you guys, it was just a list of my favorite stalkers. But for me, it was a case study for when I make my own horror game. I'm not going to say a whole lot about it since it's still in the planning phase, but just know that once I get a proper PC, I plan to bring my ideas to light with some inspiration from these monsters. especially the Xenomorph. Thanks for watching, and I'll... Huh. Looks like Halloween's sticking around a little longer this year.